What's up, everybody? Welcome into this week's episode of the Rapala We Are Collegiate Bass Podcast. Kicking off the new year here in 2025 with the first episode being joined by Dan Quinn with Rapala, Director of R&D and Field Promotions for them. Dan, let's just get to the jump here real quick, man. New year, 2025. Last year, obviously a big year with the Crush City coming out and making a big push with those soft plastic baits tied to that lineup. Entering 2025, we see a lot of new stuff at ICAST with the calendar flipping to this new year. What's happening with Rapala for anglers to be on the lookout for and look forward to here very soon?
Well, hey, Kyle, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it. And it's an exciting year, that's for sure. The trend as of late has been for our pro staff guys to let the cat out of the bag a little bit early. So our surprises aren't quite as surprising lately, but I'd say the big one for this year has got to be the Mooch Minnow. I mean, it was arguably the most significant launch of a lure we've ever had, with DC winning the Red Crest and Wheeler winning tournaments with it. It was quite the compliment to the freeloader. But I guess it'd be the year of the Mooch Minnow if I had to predict it.
Let's talk a little bit about that bait specifically. So we had Dustin on. We talked to him on the podcast as a former college angler, and some of the ties back to other brands as well as Rapala with our series. And he talked about the bait then, and it was still kind of a bit of a secret, but he already had some major victories on it. And then now, obviously, from ICAST to this point, it's made it into the public eye. What goes into the development and creation of a bait like that, starting with pre-concept? How does the idea get to you guys, whether it's someone on your staff or Dustin came and said, hey, we really need something that fits X. How can we get that made? Kind of talk about the development from the very first, idea of the creation of this lure.
So this one's pretty cool, and it's pretty close to home for me. I was tasked with starting the brand, and at the time we didn't have a name for it, but what became Crush City. So working with our team and kind of having a lot of control, build it from the ground up. We did it with Jacob Wheeler. I mean, if there's anyone to develop a bait brand, he's the guy. Worked with Jake for a lot of years, and we have a really good working relationship. And we kind of came up with those first 5 baits together, just Frankensteining things, spending 3-4 days down at his house, messing around with baits in his pool, understanding different actions, what this does, what that does, and really taking our understanding of making hard baits, giving a lure flat sides to give it a better action, better roll, this and that, different, and just messing around. That's how we came up with the first 5 baits. And then to complement those, it was kind of like, all right, we've got these core baits. What do we need now? And working with Jacob, what do you need to win? And obviously we're talking with Dustin a little bit on the side with Kyle Welcher, Bob Downey, a couple of the other guys. And it was just kind of an idea like, well, we need a bait you can drop shot. Then we also need a smaller minnow type action. We looked at other baits out there, look at, all the crazy stuff in Japan and this and that. And we just kind of had the concept to put a tiny little boot tail. And long story short, kind of talk with the engineers, draw some pictures, send it over. Then they mock something up 3D. And we've got some guys in-house that can do like 3D prints and just get a kind of a starting point is what we like to do. And then get a bunch of variations made, get them sent over, go to the pool, throw them around, watch what they do, take video, study them. So do you like this? Do you like that? Do you want tighter action, wider action, this and that? And it's, every now and then you strike gold. And we've been really fortunate to have had some home runs. So, and the Mooch Minnow is definitely right there. It's the timing of it all, the stars have aligned for us. You couldn't have predicted all this with the minnow craze in our timing with this stuff. But when it happens, it happens. You got to run with it and make the most of it, and we're doing that. I'm just trying to keep the momentum. Our foot's on the gas, and we've got some cool stuff coming still.
That's what I wanted to ask. As you look at the Mooch Minnow specifically, it's a bait that these anglers are using primarily with forward-facing sonar, Garmin Live Scope, and they're sitting there and seeing the fish, and they're dropping the bait on them, and that's the style of presentation that bait fits. As it pertains to the research and development of these lures, and let's stay with Crush City as we've been talking here, that initial first 5 baits and the ones that have since come out after that, how much of today's technology, the seasons and patterns of the fish throughout the year and what they're foraging on, how does that play into when you sit down with the concept of a bait and want it to apply? You know, are we trying to hit one specific technique with the forward-facing sonar? Do we want something that works 12 months out of the year so that there's coming back to the shelves to get those specific soft plastics? Kind of talk a little bit about how today's technology and the seasons apply to, you know, creating a bait that's going to be something that's productive for you guys year round.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess it's a little bit of yes and a little bit of no. Forward facing has obviously become a huge factor. It's just with the minnow craze. The cool part about it that I appreciate, and working with Jake, we're always trying to develop baits that do more than one thing. Try not to pigeonhole ourselves too bad, just because if you make a lure, you want to sell enough of them to justify the production. Otherwise, it's going to get discontinued. So you want to make a bait, and obviously there are techniques that lend itself to being just for that. But, you know, the freeloader is an amazing trailer on a chatterbait. It's an amazing jig and minnow, shaking a minnow program, spinnerbait trailer, this and that. The mooch minnow, in particular, is a really good drop shot bait, whether you spine rig it or nose hook it or obviously shake it. But all these baits too, in this minnow craze, what I'm excited about, and we'll see this year with the NPFL not having forward-facing sonar and the BPT limiting it, the guys are still going to shake minnows. Like I've done it a ton, and you can just cover water a little slower with it, but man, the fish still react to it. So I mean, some baits are going to definitely lend themselves to that technique, but certainly the mooch minnow, that one's a year-round deal. But you can fish it on the Blake. What am I trying to say here? The Sturgeon Bay Open. That's that program over there. The mooch minnow bouncing around on the bottom is like the most ridiculous goby imitator. Like they can't not eat that thing. So on the bottom, shaking it, drop shot, you know. So we're trying to cater to multiple techniques with each bait, if at all possible. So it's very much a thought, you know, and obviously we want to cater to any trends that may be coming in forward facing and what that looks like. But yeah, I mean, and now we've got some other characters involved. We've got a great team. So we're pretty kind of have an open book. Like, what do you guys think of this, that? We have a really good core team to just have open discussions and kind of think through things thoroughly from every angle and just make these baits as good as we possibly can.
You hit on it a little bit earlier, but before we kind of finish up the talk on Crush City, I want to ask this. Seeing the success also with as quickly as it came, what's it feel like on your end, you know, if you're an astronaut and you've worked on a spaceship and it makes it to the moon, you know, to be a part of the team that's done that, it's got to be something that's really awesome and rewarding. Or, you know, a manager on a baseball team and you win the World Series on this group that you put together to go out and achieve a goal. It's kind of what you've done here in terms of creating this lineup of lures and to go out and see the success and the checks that it's cashed already for these anglers out on the pro circuit. What's that moment like for you and the team there that put all of this together to equip them to go out and catch those fish?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it feels pretty darn good. It's pretty cool. You know, it doesn't happen to a lot of people, and it doesn't happen every day when the stars align like they have for us. Yeah, it's very rewarding, you know, to see the baits working so well, having traction, seeing people catching fish on them all over the country, all over the world. I mean, that's one of the cool parts of Rapala is we're a global company, and these baits are catching fish that I don't even know what they're called, you know, all over the world in the oceans, and it's pretty darn cool. But, you know, I'm just fortunate to work for Rapala and have the job that I have, which has allowed me to befriend Jacob and get to know him and work with him like this and build the team we've got, pro staff guys, and then these baits. It's a little bit surreal, but I mean, it's a heck of a feather in my cap and all of our guys. It's a feather in our cap too. It's a pretty cool accomplishment that, I mean, I very well would look back and say that was the coolest part of my entire career. You know, if I had to anticipate. I hope it's not. Hopefully there's more amazing things to come, and we're certainly not stopping, but it's going to be a tough one to beat. I mean, it was arguably the best launch in the history of fishing. So
Yeah, that's really cool to be a part of and fulfilling. I'm sure we're talking with Dan Quinn from Rapala, Director of R&D and Field Promotions there for them. Let's switch over to the hard bait side now and take a look at Rapala. I know there's been a lot happening with the Maverick, the jerk bait in y'all series, some other different things in terms of hard baits. Kind of let you jump in. Anything specific new for this year or things to look out for the hard baits with Rapala?
There's still some super exciting stuff over there as well. Yeah, the Deep Maverick. The Maverick has been an amazing bait for us. It's a really good jerk bait. Great action, the red line trebles on it. And we're building upon that PXR, the Precision Extreme Rapala lineup of baits, which is just out of the pack, tournament ready, for day 3 of the Classic. Like, you don't need to touch anything on these baits, which has kind of been a fun one to work on with the Maverick and the Deep Maverick. But now we've added the Jowler, and that's one we built with Jacob as well. To get in the mind of Jacob with plastics is a trip. And when you start talking about topwaters, then you see that guy's eyes really light up. Like, I mean, he lives for topwater fishing. So that is a really cool opportunity to make that bait with him. And it's a pencil popper style, splashing walk the dog bait. And that one is cool. The colors came out. I mean, I'll say they're in a league of their own as far as the Rapala colors. It's just like, woof. I mean, we nailed it. The action, that bait, that's what Patrick was using on Murray. Cody Hoff, a lot of those guys in the herring fisheries got into them last year using the chrome one. But yeah, that's a really good bait. They bite that one. That's guaranteed. So those are a couple really cool ones. We added some sweet colors to the DTs, which guys are playing around with crankbaits and forward facing more too, and needing to get that reaction bite, burning baits and killing them, just burn as fast as you can. There's still a time and a place when you need to do that. So we're pouring the coals to DTs still, and some guys this will really resonate with, but we brought in a variety of different colors, and one of which is Crystal Craw, which people may remember from the Lure Jensen Speed Trap. And on top of that, we also brought the actual Lure Jensen Speed Trap. Didn't change a thing, just added some colors, and it's now under the Storm brand, just so it has better distribution and we can get it out there to more people. But the old Speed Trap is something you definitely don't want to sleep on. That's a fish catcher.
You mentioned bait color selection there quite a bit, and whether it's stuff that's new coming out or the different varieties that a bait is available in. Now, more so than ever, it's the same thing as we're talking about the forward-facing sonar and the soft plastics, but things have to be as realistic as possible because these fish have been around the block. They see stuff cruise by their head all the time, and you need that lifelike presentation almost more now than you ever have in terms of fishing, and it's probably going to only continue to go that way, right? What goes into picking out colors and maybe a scope or range of colors that you want to target, but then also taking that and making it match an angler's needs, and the needs of someone in Texas aren't the same as someone in Minnesota, as someone in Florida or in California, which is then turns into this full selection of baits from that part. Talk a little bit about what goes into picking these colors and then making them match what they need to.
Yeah, that's probably one of the funner parts of my job, because to figure out what colors all these guys like, I need to go fishing with them. So that I got to do that. And when I'm doing that,
you have to do that, right? That's it's a bad thing. Yeah.
It's a tough deal, but somebody's got to do it.
Yeah.
And that happens to be me a lot of times. So, but in between catching fish, I'm just pilfering through their boxes, and I'm looking, I'm asking, and if we've got a project on the horizon, is maybe we're gonna do a new lipless or we're gonna do a new topwater, I'm gonna say, what are your top 6 colors? Day in and day out. Are there some regional specific ones? And I'll bounce around to our top 10 guys, say, and I'll get a pretty good feel for what they're using. And some of them have a pretty good sense of what sells as well, because you gotta factor that in. If you don't sell enough of the baits to justify producing them, then that they get discontinued, and that's just not doing anyone any good. So, but that's kind of the way it starts is feel the pro staff, as well as our internal team. We've got a ton of great guys and great mindsets, like Kyle Wood is now working. He's overseeing the Rapala Lures in Crush City, and Storm as well. And Kyle's a wealth of knowledge, having been with FLW for, I don't know if it was maybe 12 years, but so he's got a great sense of all this stuff. But yeah, things are changing, and fish are more, well, we're able to watch the fish interact with the bait, whereas we may not have been doing that. So now it's, well, I just threw a 10 centimeter jerk bait at a 110 or a 100 or a 90, and it just flipped out when it saw an 85. So size can be, or maybe it was a color change you did, but you're watching and interacting with fish, individual fish, and seeing their behavior. So you're learning. Colors make a difference at times. Size makes a difference at times, and action, and knowing what you need to have in your arsenal. You can't maybe have everything, but I mean, down the road, that's kind of the goal. You want to have all the tools that you may need in your toolbox. So yeah, it's a process as far as getting the new colors, but it's hard at this point. I mean, golly, you look at the Rapala selection of colors, or any manufacturer out there today, it's like, wow, are there more? Like, could we need another one? But it's like, oh yeah, no, we got to have this, we got to have that. And as you get the base mass market colors done, that's when you can kind of reach out and do a little more regional specific colors to, maybe the Carolinas or the Texas market. Obviously, the Texas market's got, all the great red colors that have infiltrated, and people have seen, hey, they actually buy them in Minnesota too, or New York, or, so it's, that's a really fun process, playing with colors. And we honestly have just an incredibly talented team in Finland. This guy in particular, Asa, he's just a genius with colors, and he's a mastermind. So they're always throwing ideas at us, and those guys over there in Finland and the European side are more pike and zander and perch focused, but sometimes they've got some cool colors. Or the saltwater colors actually have spurred a lot of our colors, to be honest with you. A lot of different herrings and smelts and all those crazy saltwater fish. It's like, oh, what is this? You kind of, if it catches our attention, it's probably going to catch the attention of other people, and go mess around with it, see if the fish like it, and go from there.
As part of Rapala's involvement with the Bass Pro Shops Collegiate Bass Fishing Series, that ties back in Rapala, Crush City, Sufix, VMC, as well as 13 Fishing. So let's talk about Sufix real quick. I know one thing we talked with your team about at ICAST was this concept of all those brands being tied in together to create this full system for you to go out and achieve a goal. We've talked a lot about live scope and forward-facing sonar and how that affects your bait selection and things. So now let's talk line selection as it pertains to this concept of a system. Sufix Revolve coming out here. Ultra finesse fishing is kind of the main goal for forward-facing sonar techniques tied back to that line. Kind of give us a little bit of a rundown of Revolve and how it benefits an angler.
Yeah, absolutely. That's another one where the timing couldn't have worked out any better for us, because we've had this line in development for quite a while. And it honestly started with Nano Braid, which is one we had in a smaller spool. It was in, I'm not sure exactly the whole history of it on the back end, but originally we brought that line in because we were able to cast these little micro marabou jigs. This is going back maybe 15 years or so, before it was more mainstream. We throw little marabou jigs for smallmouth. It's been just a staple deal up in the north and Mille Lacs and all these places. But that line, you were able to launch these baits 25-30% further than with any other braid, because it was a micro diameter. A lot of lines are diameter based as far as a pound test, but this was a true break strength. So it was a micro line. You're able to launch these baits much further. So that was the whole premise. But the line was very supple, and it was prone to wind knots. But it's kind of like, well, that's fine. I'll deal with it for getting my bait out further. But over the years, I thought, man, we need to revise this line. We need to bring in some high vis colors, and we need to give it a little bit more rigidity. And working with Wheeler had 8-pound nano braid on every single spinning reel, short of having Revolve. And I'm talking 100% of his reels. And now he has 8-pound Revolve on 100% of his spinning reels. It's taken over, and as far as your control the bait with a thinner line, it has less drag in the water. And obviously there's a point of diminishing return where you don't want it too thin where you're going to break fish off. But that 8 or 10 pound is, I mean, it's the deal. It's thin, it cuts through the water. It's not prone to wind nuts at all, but cast your baits the same, just as far as the nano braid. I mean, honestly, it's like, but the timing with the boom of spinning reels and spinning rods to shake a minnow or present baits on forward-facing sonar, it's really just, it's the stars align for that as well. So now between jigs and plastics and line and the 13 rods and reels, everything, it's just like, wow, it's really come together. It's the whole system.
We'll talk about 13 fishing and the rods and reels here in just a second, but let's hit on VMC real quick before we do so. The Redline series introduced just a couple years back and just continuing to evolve and improve upon the hooks that are in y'all's current lineup. Talk about anything new that you want to there or something informative for the anglers to know about the specificity of VMC hooks.
Yeah, the one that really stands out and the one everybody's getting, my phone's blowing up every day. People are wanting them and needing them, is the Redline swim bait jig. We went out and we wanted to make the ultimate tungsten jig head, just a matte finished ball head jig, but just as premium as we could make it. We did not cut a corner. It's got the weights etched in them, a Redline hook so that the Redline hook is vanadium steel with a PTFE coating. And that the vanadium steel is, you can get away with 25 or 30% thinner diameter with the same strength. So it's a lesser diameter hook, but it's still got the strength of a thicker hook, and it's got a needle point. It's Teflon coated or PTFE. It's the most premium hook you can make. So we did that, and I mean, we nailed it with the plastic conical keeper. And the idea was to keep the weight at the head. But that plastic conical keeper, we've learned through the years, it's a very, very good way to rig your plastics on. It actually holds. And that it's also in a 1/0 and a 3/0 from an 1/8 to 3/4. So we just, let's do it all. Because I've been out with Wheeler on Dale Hollow or wherever we're at, and he's needing a 3/4 ounce head on and a small hook. And he's like, it's just, you can't find them. You got to order them from Japan or whatever. I'm like, well, and he's so far ahead of these trends that I'm like, all right, so that made me, push back, and we figured it out through meetings. We need a 3/4 ounce head with a 1/0 hook. And people are looking at me like I'm an alien, but I'm like, just trust me, guys, trust me. Yeah, they'll be, they're not going to be cheap. I get it, but they're the best jig head you can get. And now that pairs up with our mooch minnows and freeloaders and mayors and all the stuff. So yeah, we undershot the forecast on that. So we're working through that. They're getting into stores now, but as far as our website and the availability for the pro staff that helped me design them, I'm like, sorry guys, I don't have any, but we'll get through that. That's a good problem to have. But either way, that one really stands out as probably the most exciting new VMC item we've got.
And let's round out the system like we spoke of being able to go out and catch these fish. We've hit on the soft plastics, the hard baits, the line, the hooks. Now rounding it out with 13 fishing, the rods and the reels. Anything new there or specific items that you want to point out as it pertains to 13?
Yeah, we have two really cool new brands. Now that we're working with 13 and Ricky over there, Ricky's just a mastermind with rods. The two new series are the Oath and the Myth. And the Oath is a $99 rod, and the Myth is a $199 rod. I mean, for $100 and $200 rods, they're incredible. I just honestly, people will have to just feel them, fish with them. The pro staff, they thoroughly vetted. Ricky does his homework and he makes a premium rod. But at those prices, this is as good as it can get. Variety of sizes, lengths and actions to accommodate all the traditional techniques, from light drop shots and shaking minnows to throwing big glide baits and swim baits, cranking rods, the whole works, jerk bait rods. And yeah, it's pretty exciting because not having, had the input and control with 13 in the past, but now that we do, we're getting it all dialed in, and it's fun. We're excited. There's big plans for 13. We really are.
We're talking with Dan Quinn from Rapala, Director of R&D and Field Promotions. That last part of your title there is kind of where I want to go with my next set of questions. Here, we're at the Association of Collegiate Anglers. We run these collegiate bass fishing tournaments nationwide, and you've seen it over the last 5 to 8 years maybe really take off. It's been around for a while. I myself have been out of school for a little over 10 years now, but when I was in college, you'd see an angler a year maybe. At that time, it was Jordan Lee, his brother, one college angler moving up to that next level each season. This last year, we saw 4 or 5. The year before, we saw a couple more. You're seeing more quantities of these anglers moving up into these ranks. Kind of talk a little bit of what you have seen. I know you mentioned Cody Huff being on y'all's pro staff. He's a former college angler at Bethel University. Talk about your interaction with these younger anglers that are coming from the college ranks into the professional scene, and maybe what you've noticed about them, whether it's on the water or their aptitude off the water in the business world as well.
Well, yeah, it's absolutely unbelievable. I guess it's almost, it's kind of surreal, honestly, how big of a deal that's become and how the opportunity that is out there for guys to get into fishing and go fish competitive tournaments around the entire country to then get to the time where they want to jump in the opens and have that much history under their belt is, it's incredible, because that used to not happen. There's no way you could have done that previously. So for those opportunities to be where it's at today, it's incredible. It really is. And these kids get to know each other. It helps for me, you can kind of keep tabs on what's going on, and you can see the kids that stand out, then, wow, this kid's really got it put together. And boy, he's fun to talk to. He's got a good head on his shoulders. He's respectable, and there's our next pro staff hire. It is what it is. That's just the process and the rungs of the ladder. There it is. It's college fishing. Not to say you have to do it, but gosh, if you do it, what an opportunity. It's unlike anything I've ever seen in fishing.
What is some advice you might give someone that's listening as they have that in front of them, the chance to compete at the college level, to make the most of that opportunity? What does that look like? Is that building a professional brand, obviously on the water, and having that success? Because I think that's something we've talked to people about throughout the years, these anglers, especially in the past, not as much now as things have changed, evolution of social media, digital media, and things of that nature. But used to, these kids grew up and they just wanted to go get to the water as soon as possible, stay out there as late as they could and catch as many fish as they can, and called that work. Now, as we can see with, say, like the Crush City and Wheeler and Dustin, there's a whole element to the marketing side of this where then you've got to go out and show value to be able to help companies like Rapala and Crush City get this product to the masses. So that to be said, for these anglers now at the college level, what are things that they can be working on, whether it's becoming more business savvy, creating a better digital footprint, in terms of social media and creating value that way, as well as, communication skills, and the catching fish is still a big part of it all. But that to be said, kind of some words of wisdom and advice to an angler that's, 18 to 22, trying to figure out how to make their way in this world of professional angling or the industry side. What can they be doing to work on and refine their skills to make themselves, more presentable and reputable to a company?
It's a great question, and it's one I get a lot, and I struggle with it a little bit, but honestly, it's evolving. It evolves every year so much, to the point where when I first started in this role, it was, oh, you won a tournament? Well, all right, well, go do all your interviews, talk about the lures and equipment you used to win, and then next month we're going to see it in Bassmaster magazine or whatever it was, or on TV down there, And to where it's come today, and with social media, it's kind of makes my head spin a little bit. And on top of that, having the opportunity to work with Wheeler, who arguably sets the bar as far as what anglers do off the water. I think he just hired his third employee as far as video and content. He's on a whole nother level, and so is Dustin. But so what they're able to produce and do for Rapala is incredible. They're full on. It's almost a marketing partnership plus the angling market, partnership with what they're doing on the water. But they're filming everything, and they have guys that have to, process the film, edit it, and social media, there's so much more to it. I don't envy that. It's like to be a competitive professional fisherman is wild. You have to have this incredible skill set. You have to spend so much time on the water fishing and earning that. And then to really move the needle, typically you need credibility. Well, you get credibility with trophies. And to win trophies, you need time and focus on the water. So to juggle all that is very, very tricky. I don't envy it, but there's so many guys that are just, there's such a passion for it. That's what they want to do, and they're willing to sacrifice for that. There's going to be a lot, it's a tough road. But if guys are going to do it, that's what you have to do now. You have to be able to figure out, did I get enough time on the water? But I've also got to keep building a presence on YouTube and Instagram, TikTok, so whatever it is. And then there's the other avenue. Maybe it's not a total competition focused deal, because there's now an opportunity for guys to create content and be, what may be coined as more of an influencer. So you're not necessarily winning tournaments, but you can influence a lot of people. And to simplify it all, at the end of the day, if I have an agreement or a contract with a guy, it's not much different than buying an ad on buying a back cover of In Fisherman Magazine or Bassmaster or whatever it is. Like, it's a marketing spend. I need to justify the return. So what's the return on my investment? The ROI is what you kind of have to look at. And it's not always black and white, but it's getting to be that way with all the social media and digital stuff. You can provide analytics on the back end, or you're helping to sell products. That's a real thing now. And I think that's definitely one of the biggest weaknesses with guys that I see and deal with now is the reality of, you need to justify what you're doing. You can't just go fishing and catch a fish on something and then tell me about it. It's like, I don't, it's cool, good for you, but go tell other people about it, but you need to figure out, how do you do that? You don't want to turn people off and be too selly or pushy. So there's an art to it. And everyone's different. Each guy's got their own personality. So some things work better for other guys. It's not black and white, and there's not a roadmap necessarily, but at the end of the day, it's ROI. And what is that? Is that, you move the needle through Instagram, just catching fish and posting videos about, fish, biting on these lures or whatever it is. I mean, it's a can of worms, but it's doable. I mean, guys, every year, more and more guys are doing it. I say there's more newer, younger guys getting into it and coming out like, holy smokes, look at what this guy's doing, And so it's tough, and I think it's getting tougher for the older guys, to be honest with you. I mean, a lot of these guys are very established and have strong brands still, but man, it's quite the dynamic.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting too, as we've talked about it for these young anglers. There's myself, like when I was in school, I went to school for broadcast journalism, and at the time that was, you're going to be a news reporter. And you started learning how to do stories on radio and recording, and then going out in the field and coming back and telling the news, right? And then when I'm done with school, over the course of those 4 years, it turned into, oh, wow, all these companies now need video and editing and marketing services. And everything's always evolving, and to be a part of that as a young angler making your way out into the world, it gives you an opportunity, and there's a chance, just like you said, no matter whether you're the established veteran or the young person in the room, if you can prove your value, there's an opportunity for you out there. And it's very good words of wisdom and advice for these anglers to take away from that conversation. Dan, thanks for the time today, man. We appreciate it. We're looking forward to 2025 and all the awesome stuff that y'all have going on there with Rapala, Crush City, Sufix, VMC, and 13 Fishing. And we're looking forward to this new season of the Rapala We Are Collegiate Bass Podcast. Last year we hit the milestone of 200 episodes. We'll keep moving on right down the line and add to that number this year here, and we're very excited to be able to do it. Thanks again for joining us here today, and have a great year there at Rapala, and we look forward to bringing more information to these anglers about y'all's product offerings.
Heck yeah. Well, thanks for having me on, Kyle. Appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you soon.
Welcome to Minnow King. How can I help you?
Everything looks good. I'm friggin' starving, man. Been spawning all morning.
Ugh, TMI, bro. What do you want?
I'll take a Crush City freeloader and gizzard shad.
Anything to drink.
Water.
Pull ahead, please. Welcome to Minnow King.
We're gonna have what he's had.
Yeah, throw me in a net BLT, too.
Pull ahead, please.
Calm down, quit feeding him so much.
Hey, man, I'm trying to, man. If you
If you overfeed him, he's gonna hide under a log.